Straight all day.
You're now tuned into the best show of the show business. This is the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. This is the go-getter energy that moves you to make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together into one package. What you get is the philosophy, the show, the book, the mindset, the method known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome yourself to today's show and everyday's show. Today's topic is how to value success over ego, or in other words, how to make sure you are prioritizing. That'd be a better way of titling this. Prioritizing success over prioritizing your ego. Now, some may think that these are the same thing, but they are, and at times they are. I mean, there are times when the more you prioritize your ego, the more success you will create, because ego is our sense of self-worth, is our sense of self-identity. The ego is the thing that separates us, that allows us, at least mentally, to separate ourselves from everybody else out there. And the more you do that, the more you can create the success that whatever your picture of success is in your life, because we all have a different definition of what success is. Nobody can tell you what success is for you. You have to decide what it is for yourself. However, the success that you wish to create, whether it be, usually is going to involve other people, may involve helping other people, may involve dealing with, interacting with other people in some ways, may involve being on the same team as other people. Some people, as I said, will think that ego and success are always the same thing. They are at times, but not all the time. At times they are sometimes polar opposites. And today you're going to learn how and why, because sometimes with our egos, the things that are our sense of the ego is which is what gives us our sense of self-worth and just being different from everybody else. Sometimes prioritizing what we want, or prioritizing what's going to make us feel like we are different from everybody else, could be the exact thing that hurts our success, especially when you're working with a team, especially when whatever type of success you're after will involve some form of self-sacrifice. And most success is going to involve some form of self-sacrifice. And when I say self-sacrifice, I don't mean waking up early in the morning or shooting the extra 100 jump shots in the gym. When I say self-sacrifice in this sense, what I mean is the sacrifice of what you would want for yourself, what will please your ego, what will make you feel good personally. You may need to sacrifice a little bit of that in order to help the group or the organization or whatever the program or the processes that you're involved in reach the outcome that everyone is after. That's the type of self-sacrifice that I'm talking about. And you must learn how to value the success of the overall mission, whatever that mission may be, over just pleasing your personal ego. For another example would be, let's say if you're working in some type of business, maybe you're the only person there in the business. So you think everything that pleases your ego is going to please the business, but not necessarily. There may be times when you need to put your ego aside as an individual and maybe apologize to somebody. Swallow your pride, swallow your ego, and apologize for something that at the time you didn't think was a bad idea. Maybe there are times when you need to not do the thing that's going to make you feel good, but do something that's going to make someone in your organization or someone on your team or one of your customers feel good, because that'll lead to another sale. That'll lead to someone opening the door for you. That'll lead to you making a connection that you otherwise not would have made. All of those things will make you put your ego in the secondary position and put the success of the overall game, the overall mission, whatever you're going after, in the primary position. So today we're going to get into, how many points do we have here today? We're going to get into 3 points, but of course, as you know, I may riff and give you 20 points onto why you need to value at times your overall success over pleasing your individual ego. Point number 1, when your goal is results in life, and your goal should often be results, because our lives are results-based and performance-based businesses. You perform in order to get results. You must be willing to admit that at times your ideas or your initiatives or the things that you want may be the wrong idea if there's another idea that just creates more success. This is something that any of you who's ever worked on a team, and a team can be a family, a team can be a partnership. Of course, we have sports teams, business teams. Anytime you're a part of a team, there's a pretty good chance that in the long run, not every idea that you have is going to be the best idea that the group produces. So I want you to look at yourself, especially those of you who are in leadership positions, those of you who are in boss positions, those of you who are in positions of where you have full veto power, meaning no matter what idea the group comes up with, you could always overrule the whole group and say, no, we're going to do what I say. You get into that tyrant position in leadership because you know you could pretty much do whatever you want. You need to check yourself very strongly. You need to check yourself very critically on this first point, that your idea may not always be the best idea for the group and for the overall success of what everyone is after. Especially, again, when you're in a team and when you're the person who has the lead. Because if you're in the group, I'm going to assume that everybody in that group has something that they bring to the table. Everybody has something that they offer. Now, you may be better at one thing or 10 things, but everybody there has something that they're seeing, something that they're doing, some skill set that they brought to the table that somehow, some way makes them valuable and keeps them as a member of the team. Because if they weren't contributing to the team, they probably wouldn't be around. They probably wouldn't be around anymore. You probably wouldn't keep them around. They wouldn't want to be around because they know they're not contributing. They know they're not bringing anything to the table. They wouldn't be getting any personal fulfillment. So you need to, as the leader, those of you who are in leadership and boss positions, look at the people in your group and ask yourself, what values do these people bring to the table and how much are we using it? How much are we ignoring it? How much are they being shouted down, or how much does it seem that they feel they can't share what they bring to the table because they feel it's not going to be valued, because they feel it's going to be overruled? So you leaders need to check yourself for this, because especially those of you who are very strong-willed, those of you who are type A personalities, those of you who are very outspoken, those of you who tend to, again, you got to check yourself for this. If your personality is so strong and your voice is so loud and clear, either literally or metaphorically, that other people in the group who may not be as type A as you, who are not as outspoken as you, who may be more introverted than you, they will maybe never say anything. They may have some great things to offer, but they never even offer it, never even give a hint they have something to offer, simply because they don't want to come up against the wrath of the natural disaster of your personality coming at them if you feel like you've been challenged. So you don't want to present yourself or have anyone in your group think that you're the type of person who can't take it if your idea is not the best idea, or someone offers an opinion or some form of feedback that may go against what you think is the best thing, because they will grow to never, ever even offer what they have. So you got to check yourself on that, leaders. I'll give you an example. There's a rapper by the name of Fat Joe. Some of you may have heard of Fat Joe. If you haven't, it's okay. He is from the Bronx, New York. He's been in the rap game for a long time. He's been in rap since back in the 90s, one of the golden eras of rap. Fat Joe has been around in the mid to late 90s. In the late 90s, he discovered another rapper, this guy by the name of Big Punisher. Some of you may remember Big Punisher. He's no longer with us. He passed away around 2000 or 2001. But for the few years he was around, Big Punisher was one of the best rappers in the game for his short period of time. I think he only put 2 albums out. And Fat Joe, who's still around, he has done interviews and people ask him about Big Punisher. They ask him, hey, how were you able to? Now, before I even get into the question people ask him, let me tell you what happened with Fat Joe. Fat Joe was, as I said, he'd been in the game for a while. He was a guy who was putting other guys on. He was giving people opportunities. If you remember, maybe a couple hundred episodes ago, I told you the story of how DJ Khaled, a guy who everyone's heard of these days, how Fat Joe was the guy who really put him on. Fat Joe tells the story how he gave DJ Khaled a really small opportunity, but DJ Khaled took that small opportunity and ran with it and went and made himself a household name as he is today. Even if you never heard of none of his music, you probably have heard of DJ Khaled because of his popularity on social media. So Fat Joe's been a guy who's been giving people opportunities and putting people on for a long time. And when he put Big Punisher on, one of the things that Fat Joe did, first we'll say, is that he put his own career on the back burner so that he could push Big Punisher out in front. So instead of putting out more Fat Joe music and making Fat Joe the star, Fat Joe decided, let me make Big Punisher the star because this guy is so good and the audience loved him so much. He has so many fans, and Big Punisher blew up. For the time that he was alive, he was doing great. And one of the things that Fat Joe gets asked these days, almost 20 years since Big Punisher passed away, was how were you able to swallow your own pride and put your own ego aside, Joe, when you had Big Punisher with you? You were already popular. You had a solid career going. How were you able to put that aside and allow Big Punisher to be the guy who shined out of your team, out of your crew? And Fat Joe said, I realized very early when Big Pun started rapping, I realized that he was better than me. I realized that Big Pun was just a more talented rapper than me. The audience really wanted him. The public was asking for him. What did we talk about not too long ago? The data decides. The data was saying, I'm not talking about specific numbers, but the audience, the buzz that Big Punisher had going was saying, this guy needs to be the guy out in front. You got to put your ego aside, Joe, and put this guy out in front. And Fat Joe talks about to this day, I realized the opponent's better than me, and I decided we're going to push him out in front, and everybody in our crew, and their group at that time, they called it the Terror Squad. He said, everybody in the Terror Squad, we're going to get behind Big Pun, and Big Pun's going to open the door. He's going to clear the path for all of us, and then everybody else is going to follow in his wake. But everyone had to be able to put their ego aside, everyone other than Big Pun, put their ego aside and admit that this is the guy. We're going to put him in front, and then everybody else is going to follow behind, because that's the way that's going to make it more successful for everybody in the group. Everybody's going to look good because of this. And me being and this happens in many groups, and me being a fan of hip hop for as long as I've been alive, I can tell you so many situations where this exact thing has happened. You think of a rapper by the name of Nelly. He came out first, and he had a whole crew with him. After he came out and sold all these records and everyone was paying attention to Nelly, he said, hey, let me introduce you to my crew. They called him the Saint Lunatics, because he was from St. Louis. So Nelly, then he introduced the Saint Lunatics, and a bunch of his people got on because of that. 50 Cent, who we talked about many times, he came out first. He had all these fans behind him. Then he introduced the G Unit, and all these other rappers came in behind him. And even with 50 Cent, when it was his time to come out, there was a rapper very popular by the name of Eminem who had actually signed 50 Cent. Now, he was super popular at the time. He put himself on the back burner so 50 Cent could get the shine, and then everyone else came in behind 50 Cent. But understand, all those people in the Saint Lunatics crew, all those people in the G Unit crew, they had to put their own ego to the side and say, you know what? This is the guy right now. We're going to get behind him and support him. And when he blows up, he's going to kick the door down for all of us to come in behind him. So everyone in that crew, even though they may have seemed like they were subservient or not the main guys in the crew once you saw them in public, you never know what their ego was, what was going on in their minds before any one of them stood out to everybody else. But they all had to be willing to put their ego aside, because they realized that this is what's going to be best for the team. And when those egos get too big and people aren't willing to put their egos aside, that's when you have problems. That's when things fall apart. Jay-Z, another rapper, he talked about at the time when his company Rockefeller broke up, that some of his business partners, there were 3 of them who started the company together, that they started to have a little bit too much ego, that they were too concerned with their own ego and their own personal glow over the success of the team. And that was the reason why, in Jay-Z's eyes, it was time for him to move on from his business partners. Now, I'm not saying that that's factually what it was, but that was his perspective. Other people in that organization had a different perspective, and they had different ways of seeing it. But it all goes to my point, is that whenever a group is going to be successful, and a group can be 2 people or more, whoever's the main person, or whatever the main idea is, or whatever the best way of going about things is, whoever else in that group was thinking they were going to be the main person, or they thought they had the best idea, or they thought their way was going to be the best way to go, they had to be able to swallow their pride, put their ego aside, and say, you know what, this other way may be a better way to go. Let me put what I thought aside. Let me put myself aside, and let me get behind what the group needs, because this is what's going to help the success of the overall organization. And a lot of people who are, you may think this means you're being strong-egoed or strong-willed when you're not willing to put your ego aside or put your idea aside, but it actually shows the weakness of your ego. See, the strength of an ego is that you are willing and able to say, when you see someone who's better than you, like Fat Joe, he said, Big Punisher was better than me. So I could put my pride aside, not put my personal glow in front of what was going to help the organization, and let's do what's best for the team, which is put Big Punisher in the front. Or someone in the G Unit could say, I think I'm a better rapper than 50 Cent, but let me put my ego aside and let 50 Cent come out. If you aren't able to do that, if you're not able to put your pride, your ego, whether it be for your personal, your idea, your project, your pet thing, whatever it is, aside because something is better, that's not showing strength of ego. That's showing a weakness of ego, because you're not willing to just admit, you know what, I'm not always right. I'm not always the best. I'm not the most talented person in every room. There's times when someone else has a better idea than you, and you got to be smart enough. Because the overall goal, remember, we're in a results-based business. The overall goal, the North Star of everything we're doing, is to create a result. It is not to serve our egos, it's to create a result. Now, if you happen to serve your ego in the process of creating a result, excellent. But serving your ego is not the overall goal. The overall goal is creating success. And usually, I mean, you can tell me if you've seen different. Usually when a person creates a whole lot of success, that serves their ego pretty damn well. Or so create the success and your ego will get served in the process. This is something that coaches talk about. Anyone who's involved in the team, I'm sure you've heard this before, that when the team is successful, everybody eats. Everybody looks good. Everybody gets paid. Everybody gets scouted. Everybody gets an opportunity out of scholarship. Everybody gets to bask in that glow of success. But everyone must be willing to put their ego aside. Usually everybody except maybe one or two people is going to have to put their ego aside because everybody can't be the star on the same team at the same time. So what are you going to push out in front and let that work? And someone with a weaker ego than, let's say, a Fat Joe wouldn't have had the discipline and the self-confidence to do that. It is a strong show of your personal discipline and confidence to be able to put your ego aside and just recognize that someone else has something or does something better than you. Marcus Lemonis is a guy I mentioned many times here. He has a TV show on CNBC called The Profit, where he goes into a failing brick and mortar business, helps that business, most of the time brick and mortar, sometimes online business, helps that business do better business by changing around their systems, giving them an influx of money to keep them from going out of business or going bankrupt, saving their stores. And then he goes and changes the whole system around, maybe changes the look of their stores, changes their menus, changes their product offerings, everything that they're doing in order to make the business successful. But usually what happens, and it's because it's a TV show, of course they have to introduce some drama. When Marcus Lemonis starts actually making the changes that he tells the business owner that he's going to make, often those business owners who are running a failing business before the profit came along and saved them, what happens is they start pushing back. They start saying, hey, I don't really want to go through all this change. They become very resistant. Their ego starts to kick in. Their inertia starts to kick in. It's been this way for all these years. I built this business with my bare hands. I started this from nothing. Now you're coming in, Mr. Money Man, coming in and changing everything that I did. And it's hurting their ego. Their ego is being pinpricked through the fact that this person's just coming in and changing everything they did, and they're taking it as a personal affront. Now, again, this is TV, so of course they edit it to make it look a certain way, but this is something that absolutely happens with people all the time, is that they tie their ego to the things that they've created. And when anyone comes along with something better than what they've created, their ego is touched by that. They're a little bit hurt by that. They feel a little bit offended by that. They take offense to it and they push back against it. This is something that we all maybe do, maybe not verbally, maybe not physically, but we definitely do it mentally. We do it emotionally when something pushes against something that we've created because it's our thing. You know, we fight the change because our ego created the old way that wasn't working, and the new way works. But sometimes to some people, the ego matters more than the success. Now, usually what happens with Marcus Lemonis on the TV show The Profit is he talks to the person, the business owner, lets them know, hey, remember what we agreed to? This is what we're doing. This is going to help make your business better. You just have to accept this. We're going to help your business be a success. I understand that we're tearing down what you created 20 years ago, but this is going to create the success. And let's remember that the overall goal is not to serve your ego, Mr. Business Owner, Mrs. Business Owner, is to serve the success. And usually they come around and they're happy in the end because everything is working out. But every now and then somebody is just so unhappy that they undo the whole deal. Marcus Lemonis walks away and the business is left to fail on its own. But you got to be strong enough mentally, internally, to accept the fact that sometimes you don't have the best or you are not the best in your group. Point number 2. Today's topic is how to value and when to value and prioritize your success over your ego. Number 2, the data decides. This is what I just told you. In other words, when I say the data decides, that means we're looking at the hard evidence. What do we see in front of us? What are we pretending to not see in front of us that's telling us the whole story that we need to be following, that our ego may be trying to tell us to not pay attention to? In other words, whatever produces the result is what you're doing. All right, that's what I mean when I say the data decides. I'm going to say it one more time so everybody can hear it. Whatever produces the result is what you should be doing. Anything you're doing that is not producing the result that you're after, you can stop doing it. Even if you've been doing it for 10 years, even if it's the first thing you ever did, even if you connect some sentimental value to it, if it's not producing the results and you're in a results-based business, you need to cancel the thing that's not producing result because it's hurting your business. You're giving time to it, but it's not producing business, it's not producing the result. Okay, then that means you are hurting your business indirectly, and eventually it may become direct. Puff Daddy, who I talked about in my Virtual Mentors episode, I can't remember the number of it, but if you're a game group member, you can just look in the Virtual Mentors category in the game group members area. and listen to that episode where I dedicated to Puff Daddy, virtual mentor of mine. One of the things I heard him say once, he was talking to a couple of musical artists who were showing off their skills, and he was trying to decide which one of them he liked better. And the thing that Puff Daddy said was, listen, my only affiliation is to what's hot. My only affiliation is to the hotness. Whoever can make the hot song, whoever can make the hot album, whoever makes the hot video, that's the person that I'm paying attention to. Now, why was Puff Daddy saying this? It's because Puff Daddy was in the hit making business. That's what he said many times. That's his whole business, is making hit records. That's what he's about. It is not about putting Puff Daddy in front. It's not about necessarily a certain dollar amount. It's not about necessarily anything else. Now, while those things may come with it, they may be the trappings that come with what he does, his overall business is making the hit records. So whoever was making the hit records, that was the one who was coming out next in Puff Daddy's company, which was called Bad Boy. I think it still exists. I don't know if any artists are actively doing their thing on it, but that was his thing. Whoever's hot, that's what's coming out next. So if Puff Daddy was the hot artist, then he put his own album out. If Mace was the hot artist, Mace came out. If Notorious B.I.G. was the person, he came out. If it was Faith Evans, if it was Total, if it was 112, whoever the hot artist was, that was the person who was coming out next. Whoever's hot is coming out. Now, why was this? Again, Puff Daddy knew what business he was in, making hit records. Episode 1273, if you have not heard that episode, the title is, What Business Are You In? If you are running a business, and remember that your life is a business. So if you can hear me right now, you are running a business. You need to look objectively at your business and ask yourself this question. What's working? That's the question. What is working? And then ask yourself, where are the results coming from? If you can't figure out an answer to the first question, ask the second question. There are two versions of the same question. Where are the results coming from? And when you get the answers to those questions, that's where your energy needs to go. Your energy needs to go to where the results are being produced. And the only way you know where the results are being produced is you must know what business you're in, so you know what result you are after. That's where your energy goes. This is the 80-20 rule in effect. Point number 3. Today's topic is how to prioritize the success, your overall success, over serving your personal ego. Understand that you may need to sacrifice one to serve the other. This is what I talked about in the introduction to the show. Too much ego can cost you success. I think all of us at times have seen this in other people, and we've also seen it in ourselves. Let's keep it real here. And to reach your highest level of success in life, your ego may need, I'm going to say it probably will need to take a back seat. At times, your ego needs to fall back so that you can do what you need to do and serve whoever or whatever you need to serve. What's the most important thing to you right now? Is it being right or is it winning? Because every organization must have a boss, right? So who's in charge in your organization? Notice that and remember that leadership by committee often fails. All right? If you're trying to lead a group, there needs to be one person in charge. Malcolm X said this in his autobiography, that every organization must have a boss, no matter how many people are in that organization. If it's 1,000 people, there must be a boss. If there's one person in an organization, that organization still must have a boss. So who's in charge? Leadership by committee doesn't work, because if you had two people in charge and they both have different ideas, who wins? Is it the person who speaks louder? Is it the person who can shout the other person down? Is it the person who's been around the longest? What, they both started at the same time? How do you decide who leads an organization? One voice is necessary to lead every organization. Now, while it sounds like a simple choice, maybe you've seen it's not so easy for many people. Maybe ourselves very often, that there is no one North Star, so to speak, that is guiding our actions. What is the main thing that we are being driven by? What's the main result that we're after? Big Pun, when he was that hot rapper in the Terror Squad group, Fat Joe realized, what's the main thing that we're after here? We want to put out the best music and have whoever the best person in our group is lead the way. Big Pun is that guy. So I got to put myself in the back seat and let him be the guy. Puff Daddy said, all right, the biggest thing for us is putting out the hit records. So if it's me, I'm coming out. If it's not me, if it's 10 other people in front of me with hit records, then they're coming out and I'm going to come out number 10. But he was always affiliated to whatever the hot record happened to be. And if it just happened to be him, hey, it just happened to be him. If somebody put out a better record than him, then he would put that person out. And I think his track record speaks to that. So you need to look at, first of all, figuring out what organization you're in. And you can see how all of these episodes that I've referred to here, if you're a gang group member, you can see all of them yourself. You can see how they all tie together. First of all, know what organization you're in. Second of all, I mean, not what organization, what business you're in. Second of all, with your organization, ask yourself where the results coming from within our organization. And then third, see how much time, effort, energy, money, and attention you are putting on producing more of that result. If you're not putting your time into producing that result, then it should make sense that your business is not going the way that you want it to go. You're probably not putting enough time into that thing. Or maybe you just need to tinker with it and figure out what different ways do I need to work on this to get the result that I want. It may not be so easy for many people to put ourselves mentally to where whatever has been our baby, the main thing that we've been focusing on, the thing that we think is the winner for us, if it's not producing the result anymore, it may be hard for us to keep paying attention to it. But you got to be willing to do that in order to create the result, because often ego and results are not the same thing. As we recap today's topic, which is how to value success over ego in life. Some of us may think at times that success and ego are the same thing, or that they go hand in hand, or when you see one, you see the other. Sometimes this is true, but many times it is not. And today you're learning why. Number one, when your goal is to produce results, you must be willing to admit that your idea may be the wrong one if there's another idea that creates more success than your idea. Fat Joe, when he had Big Punisher, he realized, hey, Big Pun's better than me. Let's push him out in front. And somebody with a weaker ego would not have had the discipline and self-confidence to do that. Marcus Lemonis on The Profit, when he starts changing around somebody's business who's been in business for 20 years, sometimes they push back because their ego is being challenged. Like, damn, I put all this together and this guy's been here for 3 weeks and he's tearing everything down and starting it all over from nothing as if it never existed. Understanding that putting your ego above success is not a show of strength of confidence, it's a show of your weakness of confidence, a weakness of your ego when you're not capable of putting your ego on the back burner when you realize that there's something better than what your ego created. Point number two, the data decides. In other words, whatever produces the result is the thing that you're doing. Puff Daddy said, my only affiliation is to whatever is creating the hit record. So whoever made the hit record was the person that he would push out next. That's the person he would get behind and push out in front. Why? Because he knew what business he was in, as I referred to in episode 1273. If you are running a business such as your life, look objectively at yourself and ask yourself what's working. Where are the results coming from? And that's where your energy needs to be. Point number three, you may need to sacrifice one to serve the other. If you want to serve your ego, you may have to sacrifice success. And if you want to serve success, you may have to sacrifice your ego. Too much of one can cost you the other. And to reach your highest success, your ego may need to take a back seat, or it might need to get out the car completely. So what's the most important thing to you? Is it being right, or is it winning? Every organization must have a boss, the main thing that everyone is focused on in that organization. So what's in charge? Leadership by committee, meaning when you're trying to serve two gods at the same time, that leadership usually fails, because there's going to come a point where you got to choose between the two. And if everyone is not aligned as to what the main thing is, then it's going to be hard for a decision to become two. You're going to lose time. You're going to waste energy. You may waste money. You may waste attention. You're not focused because you're looking at two things at the same time. You're not going to achieve your outcome. It sounds like a simple thing, but you may have seen that it's not so easy for many people. Maybe often as we look in the mirror ourselves. Work on your game. Dre all day.